So hey everyone, online campus pastor Robert Murphy, and I'm here with missions pastor Craig Walter, and we're in the midst of our God I Have a Question message series, and Sunday mornings we're answering questions that you've submitted. Now unfortunately we're not able to answer all the questions that have come in, and so what we're hoping to with these quick videos is to record some of those, record answers to some of those questions. And one of the questions we got was, why isn't America persecuted more? And I thought this was an excellent question for Craig, who deals with missions and works with a lot of people who serve persecuted areas around the world, and also has, living here in America, and probably have a really informed opinion on this. So Craig, what do you think? How come America isn't persecuted more?
Yeah, I've actually found that to be a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Usually people are asking it the other way. There's more persecution coming, and it's probably debatable. Persecution maybe isn't the right word to use here in America at this point for what is going on. We probably would call it more oppression.
Yeah.
We tend to think of persecution more as, the severe, getting thrown in jail and beatings and things of that nature. But, Christians actually are the most persecuted group in the world now for the first time, just in the last couple of years. And that certainly is growing in America. Back to the question, though, why aren't we persecuted more? I really have done some thinking about this in the last few days, and I guess I would say it's probably because America was founded on Christian principles, we've been a Christian nation, and I think what that has meant is that even maybe 25, 30 years ago, there were a lot of people who called themselves Christians or considered themselves Christians.
Yeah.
That they probably weren't really followers of Jesus. Maybe they went to church once or twice a year, or their parents called themselves Christians, so they were culturally Christians. And there was value in the public arena to be considered a Christian. Christians were respected. Christians had a place in culture. I think we've really seen that change in the last 25 years. Pew Research just did a study recently that they published in Christianity Today. And one of the things it showed in there is that there's a big swing of people that used to call themselves Christians. Again, I wouldn't say they were really followers of Jesus.
Right.
They were just nominal. But that group of people, they no longer find value in calling themselves Christian, and they're calling themselves nothing. They're not necessarily saying they're atheists, but they're just saying, I'm not affiliated to anything.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why it's been slow, is because historically there has been value and respect for Christians. So it's maybe slower than we might expect in this day and age, but I do think it's coming. I mean, I think you don't hear about it in the secular media because they're not going to talk about it. But if you really pay attention, you start looking around more and more and more, you can see that Christians actually are starting to really be strongly oppressed in this country.
Yeah, and I think I like how you said the word oppressed, and I think that's a nice take on it. And when I read this question, one thing I thought of was C.S. Lewis and the Screwtape Letters, and one of the things it talks about in there is keeping Christians busy and helping them to think just being nice is good enough. And I think to take it to a spiritual sense, I would think for the enemy, doesn't necessarily need to persecute to make us ineffective here in America. And I think you see a lot of that, I think, in churches. I know, Christ Community, we're not the epitome of what the church is, but we're definitely trying. But I know a lot of people struggle with busyness and just always feeling on the go. They can't reach out to their neighborhoods, and just we've cheapened what it means to be a Christian sometimes. And I feel does the enemy necessarily need to even persecute here?
Right.
If he's trying to make us ineffective. But going back to persecution, one of our friends from China, when they're here and they pray for us, they pray for persecution because you being a former missionary and I being a former missionary, we've seen how persecution helps grow the church. So they're always praying for that, which is interesting that we would experience that so the church can grow. So what do you think about that when you hear stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Brother Andrew, who's a guy that starting in the 1950s, used to smuggle Bibles and things into places like Russia and those kinds of countries, China.
Yeah.
He even talked about how when Russia became more open, while they've been praying for that, it actually was a little bit disappointing because without that pressure of persecution and oppression, Christians became weaker in their faith. And I interviewed a pastor in China last year, and I asked him, I said, wouldn't you like it if you had the freedom to actually have a church building that you could publicly have out there in the public arena? And he just kind of looked at me and he said, no, actually we don't want that, because we know when that happens, we're going to become soft. That's the exact word he used. We're going to become soft. And so I think that's why, why you certainly don't like to be persecuted.
Right.
They recognize, like in a place like China, the level of persecution, and in China it's kind of going the other way. It's kind of moving away from persecution more to just overt oppression.
Yeah.
But they recognize that pressure is good for them. It's good for the church.
Yeah. Well, hey, this is something we definitely talk about more. And but with Craig here, I just want to make a plug for do get involved in a missions trip. Get involved with some of the opportunities we have here in the community. We have a missions page on the website, cccomaha.org/missions, I believe it is.
Yep.
And there's trips going on all throughout the world where you can go to some of these places around the world that there is like overt persecution, but it's amazing to witness just what God's doing, what the church is doing. And I'll give you a quick plug for any of those trips you want to make.
Yeah, I mean, definitely go to our short-term missions page, actually, cccomaha.org/STM.
Okay.
We'll show you the short-term missions pages, but also right here in Omaha. I mean, we do a lot right in Omaha. There's some tough places to serve in our city, and we're blessed to be a part of that as well. So you don't have to travel overseas. You can be very involved in things we're doing right here in our own city as well.
Sure. Well, hey, Craig, thanks for taking just a few minutes of your time just to help us just address this question a little bit. And if you're watching, if you have any more questions, feel free to email them into us. But hey, thanks for watching. Craig, thanks again.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.